The 13 days after we awoke were the beginning of the end.
You serious?
Be quiet.
Best of luck. She did it! Hands high! Freeze! You all right? I'm out of the sea. So far, so good. They all want to fight.
Good for them.
hand! I'm in the way! Hey! Let's be rational now. It's in the big guns now. What do we do?
Watch and learn.
Not so tough now, huh? Hey, that wasn't like a challenge now, all right? Hey! Coming up! I'm coming!
Jump! Heads up.
This thing won't give up. Oh, goodness. Whew. We did it. Hey! Aren't you supposed to protect civilians, soldier? I mean, you are Sanctum, aren't you? What are you doing trying to stop the Purge? Why don't you tell me that?
I was a soldier.
Hey, where do you think you're going? Man. Chocobo? Just can't catch a break, can we? Yeah, that's a good question. Oh well. I better follow up. I'm getting too old for this. You sure we can get through here? This is a mess is what this is. What do you suppose this is? Is the army leaving its toys out now? Fixing to dish me already, huh? Hit me now. Great. The entire army came out to play. Unbelievable. This place is a war zone. Not wanting to get purged, I get. But taking on trained soldiers?
Better to die than get sent to Pulse. It's hell for Brimstone.
well, hell's not sounding too bad. Because this place ain't exactly paradise.
Domesticated peacekeepers. Nothing to worry about.
Maybe not for a soldier girl, but I'm trying to say, hey! We, gotta fight again. Hey, supply drop. Thanks, guys. Real nice from up there.
Preemptive strike.
Rebels! So much for the element of surprise. turn back?
There's no time.
Then what do you suggest we do?
Quiet.
Hey! 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 Wait! No, no, don't leave me!
Let go!
No, hell no! You're my only way out of here! No! Hey, that might get us across. Right there. Right?
Looks that way.
All right, you leave this to me. Hey, this way. Come on. Now. Seems to be in working order. This is not our lucky day. He's a soldier too, right? Can't you, like, pull some strings or something?
Deportees, are we? Weapons down. I'd hate for this to turn ugly.
Turn ugly?
He wants to kill us without a fight.
Time's up!
So, soldier. What's your angle? What? Classified military info? Huh? What's the matter? You quit, didn't you? Did you think I'm gonna go out there and just tell everybody your secrets?
My angle. I'm after the Foul Sea. Still happy you tagged along.
Didn't have a choice.
On behalf of Coon's citizens, I would like to thank our brave false pioneers and express our best wishes for a successful relocation. Your noble and selfless sacrifice ensures the continued safety and peace of our society. Were it not for this remarkable gesture, every resident of Cocoon, your family, your friends, your neighbors, would be exposed to the dangers of the world below. By choosing to leave Cocoon and participating in this migration...
Migration? More like extermination.
Huge. You stay here.
So sorry. I didn't mean to.
These people need heroes. Here. You keep your cool, and they will too. You got it?
Got it.
What's our motto?
The army's no match for Nora.
That a boy. It's over. It's all over. It's over. It's all over.
Sure. And when we're taking a dirt nap, you can save them all.
No, that's even worse.
No dirt naps today. We're all in this together. Our enemy's the Cocoon Sanctum. Their dreaded SciComm, no less.
What's to dread? SciComm's nothing but a whole bunch of bluster and bullying. They've got nothing on Nora.
Well, we are the heroes after all.
Let's prove it!
Yeah!
Sanctum's gonna pay for this. Wrapped up and ready! Gotta clear a path out of here.
No more.
There are soldiers everywhere.
Yo, boss. What's the plan?
Charge in, guns blazing.
Hey, that's not a plan.
Real heroes don't need plans.
Same plan as always. Hit him hard, and hit him again. Oh, yeah! Don't you kids go falling behind now. You all okay? Hey, careful with those. Don't worry. No one's moving to Pulse today. We'll clear you a path out of here, so be ready to...
Wait! Let me fight with you!
You can't expect us to just sit here.
Could help.
Yep.
Please, let us help.
Okay then. Volunteers front and center.
Here, take this one. Here you go. And one for you.
Count
Go
me
for
in.
it. Here's yours. Take care now.
Mom?
Don't worry.
Huh?
So I just
Hold it
pulled
steady.
here.
Yeah, feels good.
Yep, nice.
Can you show me again?
You got it.
That's how it works.
You sure?
Yeah. Moms are tough.
Right.
It's the last one, boss.
All right, last one. Somebody take it.
No, I can't.
Yeah.
Push comes to shove. Keep him safe.
First impression of snow? All talk.
All right, lay low and you'll be fine. We'll clear out the area. We're going home together!
Come on! Everybody up!
Right. New recruits, on me!
Come on.
Time to go, kiddo.
We're not losing to SciComm, you hear me?
This'll be a piece of cake.
Stay sharp. Don't want to make their job any easier.
Sorry, boss.
Bro, back us up. All right, let's shake things up a little.
Mobilize Beta Force! Put down the resistance!
Heroes don't run from fights.
There's nothing we can't do!
You okay?
No! We got trouble!
No kidding. Stay down.
I told you, didn't I? Moms are tough. Get him home. Please.
Hold on!
Come on! We have to move!
Right.
You serious?
Be quiet.
What's the matter? You quit, didn't you? Or did you think I'm gonna go out there and just tell everybody your secrets?
See. My angle. I'm after the Fal'Cie.
This video is sponsored by War Thunder. This is Poland. 30 years ago, it was a poor post-Soviet country, where computers were rare and video games were basically contraband. Today, it's one of Europe's richest nations, and the fourth largest exporter of video games on Earth. But how did Poland go from communist poverty to building some of the most influential games of the 21st century? Well, we first have to look at the... It's the 60s. Three pot-smoking, ramen-munching creatures, better known as college students, unraveled their first ever invention at MIT, Space War! Exclamation mark. Instead of crunching numbers or helping put people on the moon, they made triangles shoot at each other. It was the world's first video game. At the time, computers were absurdly expensive. They filled entire rooms and cost more than most houses. They were tools for scientists, governments, and people who wore lab coats, unironically. Games were the last thing anyone expected them to run. But once Space War existed, the idea was out. If computers could play games, people were going to make more of them. Over the next 2 decades, computers got smaller, cheaper, and faster. By the late 1970s, companies started building machines whose only purpose was entertainment. Consoles. In a couple of decades, video games conquered the world. Everywhere from the suburbs of the Midwest to the ex-nuclear wastelands of Japan, kids were glued to their screens, mashing buttons. Everywhere except Eastern Europe. Video games were fun, but you know who hates fun? Communists. So, much like blue jeans, rock music, and actually good literature, import of video games in the Soviet Union and its satellite states was banned. So, while kids in America were blasting Space Invaders at home, kids in Poland were stuck finding entertainment the old-fashioned way. But this started to change in the 80s. Some people said, screw that, jumping the border into Western Europe and starting to secretly import consoles into the Soviet world. Computers and pirated video games slowly started entering the Eastern European market. Kids and teenagers became enamored with this new technology. So much so that in 1985, Poland launched its first ever magazine entirely dedicated to computers and games. But then in 1991, the unthinkable happened. The Soviet Union collapsed. Overnight, communism was gone and Eastern Europe became free. Computers started flooding Poland. The digital age had finally begun. Which meant War Thunder was just around the corner. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made. You want to explore the horrors of war from your own bedroom without the horrors? Well, now you can from just your PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile. We're talking about over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, 10 major nations, from biplanes to armored cars of the 1920s, all the way to fighter jets and battle tanks of modern warfare. Try your luck in 3 distinct modes. Arcade for those craving fast-paced matches with more chaos, simulator mode if you really want to try hard on the battlefield, and realistic, the perfect middle ground. Become totally immersed in the intense combat with incredibly detailed vehicles, realistic graphics, and authentic sound effects. And if that's not enough, they also have in-depth customization, so you can arrive on the battlefield in style. So what are you waiting for? Come and join a worldwide community of over 95 million players in epic PvP battles today. There's simply no game better suited for fans of military history. And you can do so by using my links in the description, where you can get a massive bonus pack for both new and returning players, including the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account. But hurry up, because it's available for a limited time only. Although Poland finally got access to video games, there was a problem. Most people were broke. Consoles and video games cost a lot of money. Maybe not to you watching this from your comfy bedroom in Chicago while eating Cheetos, but to the average Pole, affording a console was the same as affording a Bugatti. So most kids were still far away from being able to crush turds on the Game Boy. But they were able to find a loophole. Computers. Unlike consoles, which only specialized in one thing, computers could do a bunch of stuff. Your taxes, look up questionable websites, and most importantly, run video games. As the country's education system adapted to the new digital age, using computers became a more integrated part in the school's curriculum. Thus, Polish kids were able to convince their parents to get them one. And so, in a couple of years, every little Pole was oiling up their keyboards with their pierogi-greased hands. Although they had access to something that could run video games, which games they could play was still limited. So, to entertain themselves, many started fiddling with the computers themselves. Polish kids were learning the ins and outs of their machines, every circuit in their motherboards, every digit in the binary, every pixel on their screen. Paired with the fact that the socialist schooling system heavily pushed for math proficiency meant that in a matter of a couple of years, Poles became computer prodigies. By the early 2000s, many of Poland's biggest game developers emerged. CD Projekt Red, the most notable company responsible for the Witcher franchise, and Cyberpunk 2077. Techland, its other heavy hitter as well. A lot of Poland's early games were more simple in nature and more alike to indie games than to the AAA titles we see today. Hell, a lot didn't even make their own games initially, but were studios that worked on outsourced jobs from Western developers. Yet again, Western civilization is upheld by the Polish workforce. But with a population that was thoroughly passionate about computers and digital goods, video games and game development only grew in popularity. Today, it is estimated that out of Poland's population of 380 million, 20 million play video games as a hobby. But that doesn't include babies and boomers with one foot in the grave, meaning that the vast majority of Poles are gamers. What's even more interesting, half of its gaming population is made up of women, a true paradise for every GameStop customer. This interest in the digital arts only grew as video games became more popular and more advanced. Polish developers had a vast selection of a well-educated and computer-passionate workforce to pick from. More importantly, they also had a large domestic market to which they could sell their games with a sticker made in Poland. The government and universities took note of this. Over the next decade, they rapidly expanded on this new emerging specialty. Universities opened up dozens of new courses and degrees relating to game development. So much so that today there are over 60 degree courses in making games in Poland. This only fueled the country's exponential growth in the industry. By 2019, the country surpassed the UK, Germany, and France in game exports, becoming the dominant game development country on the continent. On average, Poland creates over 500 games each year. The Polish government even added this War of Mine, a game depicting the siege of Sarajevo made by 11-bit studios, to the recommended reading list. This is the first time a country has recommended a video game in their national education system. But just making a large quantity of games is no recipe for success. The Steam discovery page is filled with thousands of newly published games that on average have the same entertainment value as watching paint dry. No, what made Poland's games stand out from the rest is their originality, rich cultural heritage, and immense world building. The two traditional video game epicenters of the world are America and Japan, so it comes as no surprise that America, being the cultural export powerhouse they are, dominated the video game market that showcases American and Western culture and history. From historic shooters like Call of Duty through medieval fantasies like Skyrim to sandbox criminal simulators like GTA, most games are influenced by the Western Hemisphere. Even studios like From Software prominently showcase Western medieval history and mythology. Polish games, on the other hand, introduced whole new fictional worlds based off of their own culture and mythos. What made The Witcher so successful wasn't its gameplay nor technical advancement, it was its world. The game wasn't filled with stereotypical goblins and orcs you find in every fantasy story in Japan and America. Its world was inhabited by creatures from Slavic mythology like the Striga, Leshen, and the Drowners. The towns you walked through weren't those of medieval Britain or Germany. They had their own unique Polish flair. Even with indie titles like Darkwood, where you play in 90s Poland being corrupted by an evil and mysterious force, these little cultural injections made these games stand out from the rest. Of course, not all Polish games are about their culture. Their own unique life experiences and sense of game design bring a much needed freshness to the gaming scene, no matter the genre or theme. So it's really no surprise that by 2024, Poland has climbed to the world's 6th largest exporter of video games and 4th largest in 2019, single-handedly carried by the release of The Witcher 3. Which is mind-blowing considering the population of other countries on this list. As a whole, Poland's video game industry is worth over $14 billion, with CD Projekt Red accounting for more than half of the industry's total worth. What's even more impressive is the fact that in the entire country, only 10,000 people work in the game development industry. Essentially, a village of Poles were able to become the 4th biggest in the industry in the entire world. Gaming and game development as a whole have become so big in Poland that the government has proclaimed the industry as a source of national pride. In recent years, they've also allocated over $77 million in subsidies to small game studios in an effort to boost this industry even further. In just the past 5 years, the game development industry in the country grew over 250%. Ultimately, Poland's game industry is a testament to the nation's success as a whole. Just a couple of decades prior, the country was a typical desolate Eastern European country struggling to procure basic goods. But in a matter of a couple of years, the nation has become a giant in one of the most popular and influential industries of the 21st century. This isn't just a huge economic milestone, but a cultural one as well. Polish culture, history, and legends are being put on the world's map, and hopefully their creativity and prosperity in game development only continues. Again, thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to play it for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile now by using my links in the pinned comment or video description. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across PC and consoles, including multiple premium vehicles and other goodies. Available for a limited time only, so make sure not to miss it.
It's been so long since we've been here that one of our mods has passed away, which is truly tragic. This even like a Wooloo. I haven't even seen like the hub for the survival server in so long. Like, this has changed a lot. Is this still like the Grand Temple? Is this still like the temple? No, it's like a wizard tower now. This was a temple the last time I was here. I've not been here in a very long time. We last toured the Minecraft survival server in 2020, I think. Was it 2020 or 2019? That's bad. We've done so many community build nights, but this is the survival server. Anyone who's subbed on Twitch or anyone with a YouTube membership app can play on in their off time. It's strictly survival, so you gotta craft for everything you see. Anything you see here has been built by players, and like they have to get resources and everything for it, so it's actually really impressive. That's something to bear in mind. Newbies, take what you need, leave the rest, please. I might need some pork chops. Thank you. Oh no. I don't know if we should go much further. Welcome to the server. Oh, we got Wooloo words. I remember like Woolsworths. Like it's like long closed. You get the Abbey Road map art. Someone make Abbey Road on the server? Jesus Christ. Sergeant Pepper map art. Holy shit, how long did this take? Is this like this must be like the shop area and book vault. Okay. Do you just buy animals? It's just a llama who's just hanging out. I don't even know how you've got these guys to like be so calm. I feel like I'm being very watched. I don't think the dolphin should be here. We found ourselves in like the shopping mall of the Arty Game server. I feel very confronted. Council will now decide your fate. People have just set up whatever they want. There's like some massive structures here. Just like the note block factory. It's always insane.
It's possible to get a movie that's better than the book that it's based on. Psycho, Die Hard, The Maltese Falcon, and The Godfather are all excellent examples of such cases. This video is not about those movies though. No, here I want to talk about the movies that are much worse than the book. Whether they made up things that didn't happen, changed characters wholesale, or missed the author's intent, these movies were, to the last, massive letdowns, often losing tens of millions of dollars in the process. As somebody who came of age during the aughts, and someone who vividly remembers going to the Scholastic book fairs, there were a few books that were unavoidable. Harry Potter, of course, as well as the Chronicles of Narnia, and The Lord of the Rings. This is how I first got the Silmarillion, which, as a kid, took me a while to get through. But one other book that I often saw was Artemis Fowl. Eoin Colfer's 2001 novel introduced readers to 12-year-old criminal mastermind Artemis Fowl II. A brilliant and morally complex anti-hero, desperate to save his mother, he discovers the hidden world of fairies and hatches a scheme to kidnap Captain Holly Short of the Leprechaun Fairy Police to ransom her for gold. The book was celebrated for its interesting blend of classic fantasy and modern technology, its intricate plotting that treated young readers with respect, and its subversion of fantasy tropes by blurring the lines between good and evil. It had an interesting exploration of greed, as well as the motives and nature of someone who might be greedy. Around the time of its publication in 2001, it was also meant to be adapted. But alas, it was stuck in development hell for the better part of 20 years, and considering the final movie, it probably should have stayed there. Disney's adaptation, directed by Kenneth Branagh, arrived in June 2020 straight to Disney+. The movie took liberties with the book, most significant being Artemis's characterization. It transformed him from a cunning anti-hero into a generic chosen one trying to save his father, making him sympathetic from the jump. Part of the fun of the book is seeing the kid outplay the adults, then show his humanity. Branagh said that this change was a conscious choice. In his words, quote, "It seemed to me that for the audiences who were not familiar with the books, this would be a hard kind of thing to accept," end quote. By making it about his dad, they also abide by the unwritten Disney rule that if one parent is alive, the other one is dead. Artemis's choice to use some of the money that he gets in the book to heal his mom is part of his arc toward morality. Here, instead of making her sick, as in the book, they just kill her off. The script also crammed elements from multiple books into one incoherent narrative, while simultaneously inventing new plot points and a MacGuffin that served no purpose. It suggested a fundamental indecision about what story they were even trying to tell. The core issue seemed to be that Disney was terrified of adapting a book about a child criminal, sanitizing everything that made Artemis Fowl unique. by removing Artemis's moral ambiguity and its antagonistic relationship with the fairy world, the adaptation eliminated a central tension that drove the original story. The Telegraph's Robbie Collin put it well, quote, "The end product is all but unfollowable thanks either to a screenplay that was incoherent to begin with, or an edit so slicingly brutal that almost every trace of the plot's connective tissue was chopped out," end quote. Critics and audiences detested it, and any chance of a franchise was taken off the table. I will grant that including The Cat in the Hat here is odd. It's a book that you can read in 10 minutes. While I'm someone who thinks that short stories often make for better live-action adaptations than feature novels, I'm not sure that that holds true here. Published in 1957, Dr. Seuss's picture book about an anthropomorphic cat who wears a red bow tie and a red and white striped top hat is one of the defining American classics. It was a revolutionary work of children's literature written with a limited vocabulary to help beginning readers while delivering a story about two kids left home alone who receive a visit from the mischievous Cat in the Hat and his companions Thing 1 and Thing 2. Therein lay the genius of the work: simplicity, rhythmic verse, and imaginative wordplay. In the book, the cat and the things end up wrecking a house before putting everything back together. Children, of course, delight in chaos, and so the result of this adaptation was 2003's The Cat in the Hat, a chaotic work of cinema that's considered to be one of the worst movies ever made. Directed by Bo Welch and starring Mike Myers, the delightful and simple picture book became an 82-minute fever dream. Myers played the cat with manic, inappropriate energy, delivering innuendo-laden jokes that were completely antithetical to Seuss's work. The production design was excellent to be sure, but garish and overwhelming, and lost Seuss's clean aesthetic in favor of excess. What should have been whimsical felt creepy, what should have been fun felt exhausting, and the film's attempts at humor ranged from crude to incomprehensible. That was the fundamental mistake. They shouldn't have tried to stretch the picture book into a feature film by adding crass humor and a convoluted plot. The filmmaker seemed to believe that being weird and loud was the same as being Seussian, missing entirely the elegance, rhythm, and child-friendly anarchy of the original book. Myers' performance was polarizing at best and disturbing at worst. It felt like the movie was made for adults who wanted to mock children's entertainment rather than for actual children or anyone who appreciated the original book. Critics detested it, and it was a box office disaster. It was so bad, Dr. Seuss's widow canceled future live-action adaptations of his works. I know that recently some have tried to defend it. I appreciate the attempt. I too defend movies that others don't like, such as John Carter and Gods of Egypt. But not every bad movie is some ironic masterpiece. Sometimes a bad movie is just a bad movie. 2003's Inkheart, written by Cornelia Funk, told the story of Maggie, a 12-year-old girl who discovers that her father, Mortimer, has the ability to bring characters out of books when he reads aloud. Years earlier, he accidentally brought the villain Capricorn out of a book called Inkheart while simultaneously trapping his wife inside it. Capricorn, in true villain fashion, wants to use this power for his own purposes. The book was like a love letter to literature itself, celebrating the power of stories while exploring themes of authorship and the relationship between readers and characters. Anybody who's ever read any fiction can probably relate to it somewhat. The 2008 film adaptation, directed by Ian Softly, featured a strong cast that included Brendan Fraser, Helen Mirren, and Paul Bettany, but it struggled to capture the book's literary magic. The movie condensed and simplified the plot significantly, rushing through character development and world building that had made the novel so enchanting. Considering that the novel is more than 500 pages long and the movie is less than 2 hours including credits, it's not hard to see why. While it retained the basic premise of the reading ability and the threat posed by Capricorn, the film felt more like a generic fantasy adventure than a celebration of storytelling. The pacing was uneven, key characters were underutilized, and the emotional stakes of Maggie's missing mother never landed with the weight that they should have carried. The adaptation failed to convey what made Inkheart special, the metatextual exploration of how stories come alive for readers. Instead of embracing the book's literary self-awareness and its ideas on the power of reading, the film treated these elements as plot mechanics. The film's tone was incoherent, never quite deciding whether it was a dark fairy tale or a family-friendly adventure. Interestingly, Cornelia Funk spoke about this when a user on Goodreads asked her what she thought about the movie. After getting over my momentary surprise of an author responding to a random person on Goodreads, I read her response, quote, "I did like some things about it. Paul Bettany, first of all, as Dustfinger. Jim Broadbent, the Fenolio should be Italian. I didn't like the whole Capricorn setting, despite Circus being brilliant. It felt unreal, staged. The misunderstanding that things coming out of a book can't be real. I also didn't like that this is suddenly the story of a man looking for his wife instead of a father protecting his daughter. I think Helen Mirren is very wrong as Eleanor, although she is of course brilliant as well. In short, books are flying carpets, movies mostly shrink them into napkins. The shrinking for this one was done with passion and many brilliant artists, but sadly, it's still a napkin." End quote. And that about sums up the issue with most film adaptations of literary sources. What takes you dozens of hours to read and form your thoughts on flashes by in less than 2 hours, and it's only in rare instances that the result sticks. The film got mixed to negative reviews and made $62 million on $60 million, a surefire flop. The failure meant that the sequels, Inkspell and Inkdeath, would not be adapted. Stephenie Meyer's Twilight series was like a pop culture fixture from the publishing of the first novel to the end of the film series. The movies were wildly successful, and so I can understand why studios were keen on adapting one of her standalone novels, the post-apocalyptic alien invasion book The Host, for the big screen. The book followed Melanie Strider, one of the last free humans on Earth, after an alien species called souls began taking over human bodies. When a soul called Wanderer is implanted into her body, she unexpectedly finds that Melanie's consciousness refuses to fade away. The two begin an internal dialogue that leads Wanderer to question everything that she knows about her species' occupation of Earth and of humans in general. The book explored themes of body image, identity, consciousness, and what it means to be human, questions that, of course, have been pondered for thousands of years, while also featuring a complex romantic situation where both personalities in one body love different men. The film was directed by Andrew Niccol. He's a director that I've talked about prior, and I think he does interesting work. Gattaca, Simone, and In Time all tackle interesting ideas at the intersection of the present and future, though it doesn't always land. The 2013 adaptation starred Saoirse Ronan as Melanie and Wanderer, with the internal dialogue between the two personalities represented through voiceover. This, of course, presents an issue, namely, it comes across as ridiculous. While reading about the Chronicles of Narnia adaptations, which would fit in this video, but which I don't include, due to their inclusion in another video in close proximity to this one, I came across this quote from C.S. Lewis that perfectly captures why he felt that his books wouldn't work as screen adaptations. Quote, "Anthropomorphic animals, when taken out of narrative into actual visibility, always turn into buffoonery or nightmare, at least with photography." End quote. Sure, he was talking about the mini animals in Narnia, but it's as applicable to conversations with oneself when it comes to films. While Ronan gave a committed performance, the voiceover technique for representing Melanie's consciousness felt clunky. The film attempted to capture the science fiction elements and the love quadrangle, but struggled with the execution on multiple fronts besides the voiceover. The desert set resistance community felt sterile rather than lived in, and the romantic dynamics came across as awkward rather than emotionally compelling. The souls were less like a complex species with their own culture and more like generic body snatchers. We already have a pretty great movie about that, of course. The film also suffered from trying to condense a 600-page plus narrative into a standard runtime, losing the character development that made readers care about both the human resistance and Wanderer's journey. The film was a critical and commercial disaster. Of it, Rolling Stone's Peter Travers wrote, quote, "The Host basically comes down to a vote for Team Jared or Team Ian. I voted myself into oblivion about half an hour in." Niccol, who once added mystery and suspense to the sci-fi of 1997's Gattaca, is no match for the giant marshmallow that is The Host, end quote. The film failed to find an audience with both Myers fans and sci-fi fans. Susan Cooper's 1973 novel, The Dark is Rising, was the second book in her acclaimed fantasy sequence. It followed 11-year-old Will Stanton as he discovers on his 11th birthday that he is the last of the Old Ones, magical beings tasked with fighting the rising forces of the dark. Set in the English countryside during the winter, the book was steeped in Arthurian legend, Celtic mythology, and English folklore, creating a rich tapestry of magic rooted in history and tradition. Cooper crafted a story that balanced the mundane and the mythic, showing Will's ordinary family life intersecting with his extraordinary destiny as he searched for magical signs needed to hold back the darkness. The novel, and the series in general, was celebrated for its atmospheric writing, its rich symbolism, and its respect for its young readers. The 2007 film was retitled The Seeker, The Dark is Rising, and it had a troubled road to release. First, they couldn't settle on a name. In the US, it was eventually called The Seeker. In the UK, it was The Dark is Rising, and in other parts, it was The Seeker, The Dark is Rising. If you're having that much difficulty with naming the damn thing, it does not bode well for the rest. Directed by David Cunningham and written by John Hodge, the adaptation's problems began with the fundamental disrespect shown to the source material. They turned 11-year-old Will into a 14-year-old American teen transplant living in England. In the book, he's embedded in the landscape, tradition, and a seasonal ritual. the film makes him seem more like an outsider, which does lean into the generic fantasy vibes. The movie shifted the tone from the mythic to the standard fantasy quest, lacking its connection to Arthurian legend, British folklore, and, for lack of a better word, grandiosity. The removal of the novel's historical depth, as well as its careful world building, left a hollow shell of a story with no cultural or mythological weight. Susan Cooper herself was disappointed. In an interview, she said, quote, "I was once hired to write a screenplay from The Darkest Rising, though the film was never made. It was much closer to the book than an adaptation by another writer filmed years later, which turned Will Stanton into an American teenager and gave him a twin brother who had spent 14 years locked up inside a snow globe. There's rebooting for you." Its entry in Wikipedia observes, "This film adaptation drew strong negative reactions from fans of the book series for its disregard of the source material," adding, in a considerable understatement, Susan Cooper was reportedly not happy with the adaptation of her book, end quote. Not only did she not like it, nor did anyone else. The film fared poorly with critics and was a box office bomb. It, of course, was negatively compared to Harry Potter. Of it, Mark Savlov at the Austin Chronicle wrote, quote, "None of this made a lick of sense to me, nor did it appear to be all that obvious to either the cast or screenwriter Hodge, whose work here feels as though he'd given up in frustration halfway through before deciding to see how far he could push the vaguely Harry Potter-esque shenanigans before getting sacked," end quote. The failure was so complete it ended the chance of adapting any of the remaining books. The Queen of the Damned was Anne Rice's third installment in her very successful Vampire Chronicles series. It followed Interview with the Vampire and The Vampire Lestat, and explored the origins of vampires, going into vampire history, and exploring the awakening of ancient Egyptian vampire queen Akasha, who's the progenitor of the vampires. The book followed her plan to create a new world order by killing most of humanity and establishing herself as a goddess, and the gathering of vampires, both old and new, to stop her. Rice crafted an ambitious narrative that spanned millennia from ancient Egypt to the modern day, exploring themes of immortality, power, morality, and the nature of evil. The novel was particularly interested in giving voice to Rice's diverse vampire characters and their different philosophies about existence and ethics. The 2002 film adaptation, directed by Michael Reimer, attempted to combine elements from both The Vampire Lestat and The Queen of the Damned. When a single 100-minute-long movie is on the hook for two books totaling 1,000 pages, pacing is bound to suffer. The movie simplified Rice's complex mythology drastically, reducing dozens of important characters to background figures, or eliminating them entirely, and transforming Akasha, played by the late Aaliyah in her final role, from a complex antagonist with a twisted ideological vision into a more straightforward villain who simply wanted Lestat as her consort. The film focused heavily on the music video aesthetic and the vampire rock star concept, but lost the philosophical depth and the historical richness that made Rice's novel so layered. Much as Rice wasn't happy with Tom Cruise's casting as Lestat in Interview with the Vampire, she made her feelings about this adaptation known. When asked about it by a fan, she had mentioned that the studio were not listening to her and weren't interested in her writing the screenplay, even when she offered to do it for the minimum pay as set by the WGA. She added that, quote, "I think any respectable screenwriter would be crazy to tackle that novel without having fully developed the background story of Lestat. Anyway, that is where it is," end quote. When it went into production, she seemed to like Stuart Townsend as Lestat, and when it was finished, was apparently pleased with it. That did not last long. After it came out, she said in an interview that, quote, "Well, Queen of the Damned. I mean, that film we can can dismiss," end quote. Critics were harsh and the movie flopped at the box office. Of it, the Washington Post's Desson Thompson wrote, quote, "Although the movie is set in the rock world and therefore should be a sort of extended music video, it's devoid of even MTV caliber originality," end quote. The series sat dormant for 2 decades until a 2022 TV series came out to critical acclaim. In 2007, Rochelle Mead published the first of 6 books in what would become her Vampire Academy series. The book followed a half-human, half-vampire, Rose Hathaway, and her best friend, Alyssa Dragomir, as they return to St. Vladimir's Academy after running away and need to navigate school politics, forbidden romance, and dark supernatural threats. The usual, really. Mead created a vampire mythology with its own social hierarchies, political intrigue, and romantic tensions, trying to balance high school drama while creating her own world. It was released at just the right time to capitalize on the success of other similar YA dark fantasy romance books, and that was probably the thinking that went into the 2014 film directed by Mark Waters. Vampire Academy was just one of a dozen, if not more, books that were part of a series that were getting adapted with hopes that some of them would land and turn into successful franchises of their own. Besides Twilight and The Hunger Games, none of them found much success. Vampire Academy sits squarely in that latter category. The movie attempted to capture the book's blend of action and drama, but leaned heavily into comedy and self-aware humor that wasn't in the novel. Sure, the book has humor, but it plays the relationships, danger, and politics straight. The movie treated the world like a joke, which denuded any stakes that it might have. It's like it kept the premise and the names, but switched the genre. The adaptation failed in part because it seemed uncertain about its own identity, trying to be too many things at once. The decision to add a layer of meta-humor and self-awareness felt like the filmmakers were embarrassed by their source material, treating it as silly rather than taking the world seriously on its own terms. The film had a relatively low budget, and that showed in the production values. Of it, Stephanie Mary at the Washington Post wrote, quote, "The only thing that distinguishes this teen magnet wannabe from its predecessors is how lazily it appears to have been slapped together," end quote. That appears to have been the case. The movie made $15 million on $30 million and was savaged by critics. In some parts of the world, the release date was cancelled as tracking was so poor. The film's failure meant that the 5 remaining books would never be adapted. A streaming series reboot was eventually attempted on Peacock in 2022, suggesting that studios still believed in the property, if not in this particular execution. Well, so it seemed. That was cancelled after 1 season. 1987's The Bonfire of the Vanities was Tom Wolfe's scathing satirical masterpiece that dissected 1980s New York. It followed Bond trader Sherman McCoy as his life unravels after a hit-and-run in the Bronx. Wolfe crafted a sprawling narrative that examined race, class, media manipulation, political opportunism, and the justice system through multiple perspectives, including McCoy, an alcoholic journalist, an ambitious assistant DA, and more. The book was celebrated for its sharp social commentary, its vivid depiction of New York's various social strata, and its dark humor about human vanity. His prose captured the excess and the moral bankruptcy of the era, while creating deeply flawed, fascinatingly terrible characters. Brian De Palma's 1990 adaptation got off to the wrong start when they hired Tom Hanks, known mostly for his comedy and likable everyman roles, as Sherman McCoy, who is decidedly unlikable. Bruce Willis played Peter Fallow, the journalist, less sleazily than he came across on the page. The film softened the book's darker edges and created more sympathetic characters. The novel is ugly and deliberately provocative. The film toned down a lot of that bite into something more palatable, and critics pointed out that once you remove the harshness, there isn't much left besides a messy plot. The film's tone wavered between drama, satire, and attempted comedy without landing any of them successfully. De Palma's typically stylish direction couldn't compensate for a script that had sanded down the novel's sharpest edges, and a cast that was fundamentally mismatched to their roles. De Palma himself would later agree with that, but noted that it was because the movie got to be too expensive and thus had to appeal to a wider audience. In his words, quote, "The initial concept of it was incorrect. If you're going to do The Bonfire of the Vanities, you would have to make it a lot darker and more cynical, but because it was such an expensive movie, we tried to humanize the Sherman McCoy character, a very unlikable character, much like the character in The Magnificent Ambersons. We could have done that if we were making a low-budget movie, but this was a studio movie with Tom Hanks in it," end quote. The movie was a legendary flop, getting blasted by critics, making less than a third of its budget, and resulting in a book about its issues, The Devil's Candy, The Bonfire of the Vanities Goes to Hollywood. Props to De Palma for giving author Julie Salomon so much access. And like he said about it, but I mean nobody realized it was going wrong when we were making it. We were very enthusiastic about what we were doing, end quote. He's right about that. You never know what the eventual reception to a movie is going to be. All you can do is try your best. When it comes to adaptations, there's an obvious mismatch between what can be done in a multi-100-page book versus a 100-minute-long movie. You end up rushing some things, neglecting others wholesale, and often lose the texture of the text, especially that which doesn't adapt well onto the screen. As a reader, you have one interpretation of the text in mind, and on the screen you see somebody else's, which also explains the mismatch. Alas, there's no easy way around this problem, and I imagine it's one that's going to be around for a very, very long time. Fairs, there were a few books that were unavoidable. Harry Potter, of course, as well as the Chronicles of Narnia, and The Lord of the Rings. This is how I first got the Silmarillion, which, as a kid, took